Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I am your host, Mary Katharine Ham. I am here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. There's a lot going on. We got tariff news. We got deportation news from the universities. We got a Ukraine update and Randi Weingarten back on the scene. And you know I can't resist talking about her and her effective political messaging. But before we get to all of that, how's it going, Vic?
Hello, Mary Katharine. Well, I'm here.
Is there something different about you?
Yes, I'm feeling more manly these days. And the main reason is last episode I talked about I was in desperate need to get a new pair of jeans because the alternative is my walking around casually in khakis.
Yeah.
And it just is it's so uninspiring. And khakis is the standard uniform in the District of Columbia, as you know, for everyone who works in town.
Right.
The khakis. And there was a khaki.
I'm not a khaki fan in general.
You know what? I remember the khaki moment from Gap, and it was Jump, Jive, and Wail, the commercial, and they would show classic sort of movie stars and singers like Nat King Cole or whoever wearing khakis, and they wore khakis, or James Dean. So that's what khakis. And we just destroyed the moment, and we don't look like James Dean or Nat King Cole. So in any event,
I feel like khakis were a very Chandler Bing look.
Yes, right? Along with like 5 layers.
Like really blousy khakis.
Yeah, and 5 layers.
So you weren't looking for blousy khakis
I was
circa
done with
1998.
You just feel like, and then you have to actually dress more formal because you can't actually do a T-shirt in khakis. It's kind of weird looking. So I had to get jeans, and I want to thank all of our listeners to Getting Hammered who gave me a ton of suggestions. A ton.
That's awesome. I feel like maybe we should do more fashion coverage so that they can help us.
People seem to care about this. Certainly if you're if you're in a predicament, and I think maybe other people are also in similar predicaments, older men, what do you do? I knew, for example, quick tangent here, my friend or a couple friends of my father-in-law. So these are older folks, right? 60s, 70s. And they were which I can't imagine what they thought about somebody my age wearing jeans. But they were also like, why are you wearing shorts? Shorts? Who wears shorts? And what's left? Slacks.
Yeah,
just wear slacks.
That's it.
Okay, that's it.
We're going full Cary Grant.
Right, you're never going to go out in shorts, and they would make fun of me like it's only 90 degrees. Why are you wearing shorts? So it was like inappropriate. So nobody suggested I not wear jeans. So that was encouraging.
Good. That means our median age listener is.
Oh, well, there's that. Either that or it's become more acceptable. And I want to give you a list, and I apologies that I don't have everybody's names, but I want to give a list of the places where they told me to go shopping. Okay? You mentioned Lucky, right? Okay, in addition to that, people were telling me, men, I think they were all men telling me, The Gap.
Okay.
An interesting one.
I don't hate on the Gap jeans. I have one pair of jeans that is fantastic.
That used to be my pair. Cavender? Have you ever heard of that? It's made in the USA.
I don't know Cavender.
That would probably be...
My brother became a real jeans nerd for a while and was very into the different kinds.
Oh, well, I imagine these are the
American-made
kinds I'd
ones.
have to order online. I didn't see a store for Cavender, right?
I wonder if he told you that.
Maybe it might have been your... Yes. Then Wrangler, which is classic, but I don't see that a lot anymore.
Wranglers, they've come back in.
Okay.
So Wranglers are kind of in now.
Once we get that, I feel like you're going really old school, and I might as well go to Jordache or something. Okay, Johnston and Murphy. I get shoes from there. I've
never seen the
clothes
jeans
are very expensive at Johnston Murphy. Somebody suggested Brooks Brothers jeans. That's a little too much for me. I can't go that far. Levi's, Buck Mason.
Don't know Buck Mason.
Yeah, I saw that in the mall actually, and I think Robert Little had recommended Buck Mason. So no sooner than we do the show and I say, I'm going to get a pair of jeans. People, you send me all sorts of comments. I go get a pair of jeans. And when I come back, I look at the Wall Street Journal in their weekend section.
Right.
And they have a whole section on advice for how men should dress, including a section on jeans for men. And what they recommend, here's what's interesting.
Okay.
They were asking a woman about what she likes to see in a man wearing jeans. And she says, please, something that is not tight but form-fitting on the posterior.
Yes.
And so you don't want to wear the kind of jeans where they she described it, like the rear of an elephant, and it just sags, and all you see is just
no, we don't want that
bag. It just comes right down, and those are pseudo mom gene like. If you just like Obama's genes,
we're not looking. Nobody's looking for a flat butt.
No,
these days.
And that's what it kind of gives you that vibe, right? Okay, so, but she also said that jeans that aren't so tight that when you wear, when you carry your wallet and phone, it's not bulging out like a hernia. She says,
yeah,
that's my problem because I have a George Costanza size wallet, so that's unavoidable.
All cash.
Yeah, so I can't. It's all cash. It's a big wad, so I can't. I can't have both, and I opted for the more form fitting. And I agree with that. So nothing too loose. The jeans that they recommended in the journal were by a brand called Re/Done,
okay.
And it was called the Mel jean for $325.
No,
I've never
no.
I'm
a no on that.
Yeah, Phil's a no on that too. Okay.
I've bought maybe one pair of expensive jeans my whole life, retail from the actual store, and they were great jeans. But even those didn't hit 200.
No,
I think they were like $125.
Right. So
I don't do that anymore. I don't know what possessed me.
I went to Tyson's Corner, the mall, and I'm not one to do a lot of perusing unless I'm there with kids. So I went right through the department stores. Kate was like, "You should check out in Macy's. They have interesting things." Right. That's a whole other world. So I went out and I said, "What is the first store that's going to jump out at me that looks, like I can walk in there comfortably, not feel weird about it?" And it was Levi's.
Eddie Bauer.
That was Eddie. I'm not falling for your old man tricks, Mary Catherine. I know you want me to get it. And
Eddie
it's a
Bauer
setup.
is solid stuff. Okay, so it was.
Okay. Yeah, it was. It's like you know where you should go. You should go to Lane Bryant. Go to Lane Bryant. Trust me. Trust me. That's what I hear. That's where everyone goes these days. You're welcome. You're welcome. Obviously not. So I went to Levi's. So congratulations to my listener Mike Green and a few other people who had said go to Levi's.
Well, I gotta say, I came in and I saw you and I noticed the jeans immediately.
Okay, immediately because they're still very.
No, they're great.
Oh, okay.
They're great. They look. Had I not known that you were looking for new jeans, I would have thought that these were
already worn in.
They are your standbys.
Because I don't want it that it's so.
But they are ostentatiously cool looking. They definitely stood out as oh, those are cool.
Yes.
And
these
cool jeans.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
These are 501. Get it ready for this? 501 93s.
I don't.
As in 1993. It's a throwback jean to the time.
That's why they look cool.
To when I was born in 1993.
That was a good call in the 1993.
That's why. I think that's why it called to me. I said the 93 might be a throwback, but I like these.
Yeah. I get a little overwhelmed by Levi's because I end up just Googling all the numbers to see what they mean.
527s. I feel like I'm doing taxes here. The other thing, Mary Catherine, is I did entertain the original 501s, and I said, oh, they have it in my size. I go to the dressing room, and no sooner put it on do I realize they're torn jeans.
Yeah.
And I thought only one of us on the show can get away with torn jeans, and it's not me.
Yeah, I do wear a lot of distressed jeans.
Yes.
Mostly because I buy my jeans at Goodwill, so they've been pre-distressed.
Yeah, I'm not buying jeans that are already torn. If it happens, it happens. So, and I do want to say I did one size. I could have gotten a little bit more comfortable, but I went one size tighter to keep me in. I got that reunion coming up. It's to keep me in line.
Train yourself in.
Yeah, it's like a mini girdle.
They're very cool. Yeah. Well done.
Thank you, and thank you, listeners. Mary Catherine, how are you?
Oh my gosh, I have a saga too. So just everybody,
that was a 10-minute
get ready
discussion.
for the.
I apologize.
Get ready for the news in just a little bit. Yeah. But I have a saga.
30 minutes from now, skip to the 30-minute mark.
This story's worth it. So, for those of you who are longtime listeners, you've been following the nursery shenanigans at my house. There are 2 kids in the room, in bunk beds / on the floor, wherever they want to sleep. We don't really care as long as they sleep. And they are 3 and 2. Well, 3.5 and 2-ish.
It's an exciting time.
They both have loveys. Are you familiar with loveys?
Are those diapers that are pull-ups?
No. They both have loveys, which are the little stuffed animals with a blanket hanging from them.
Why did I think those were diapers?
Because there's a brand called Loves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But a lovey is a sort of, I feel like it's a new gen development. Like when we were kids, we didn't have loveys, but it's a little blanket with a character head attached to it.
Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
so they can sort of clutch it while they sleep.
That's cute.
Okay. So they both have a lovey. the 3.5-year-old girl has a blue dog that her sisters got for her before she was born. Her brother has a little lion with a blue blanket. And the blue dog's name is Blue Dog. And the lion's name, adorably, is R. And the lion's name is R because that's a lion's roar.
Yeah.
So R. And he asks for R when he goes to bed.
Oh.
And if you produce R, he goes, "Oh, my R."
It's wonderful.
It is wonderful. So get ready for this. In the nursery, they play in the morning. And at one point last week, my husband's like, "Where's R?" And I was like, "I don't know, but he's got to be in the house. We don't let R leave the house."
No.
So because my son is the most attached to his stuffy of any of my kids that I've had. The other girls are not so into it. So R, it's fine. R's in the house. Mm-hmm. No big deal. We'll come across him. 2 days later, we still haven't come across R. And it hits me. One time I caught his sister, the 3-year-old, putting R in the diaper pail. And what happened was, this is my theory, it is still possible he could show up.
Yeah.
My theory is that she stuffed him in the diaper pail. It happened to be the day we cleared the diaper pail, put it in the trash, and the next day was trash day, and I figured it out about 3 hours after the trash went out. So R has
never been found then.
R.I.P. R.
Okay, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is, did she do it intentionally because she thinks it's funny to put?
Oh, this is with malice aforethought. I am quite certain.
Okay,
I don't think she knew that he would be lost forever, but I think she was being a jerk.
Wait till they find out where he is now.
Now,
yeah.
At first, I thought she put both loveys in there, and that made me feel better because I'm a little bit. I was sad. And I'm a little bit one of those people who puts personalities and feelings onto inanimate objects like that.
Hard
and I was
to throw it away.
I was like, they'll be together. Mm-hmm. And then I found Blue Dog. And I was like, she only offed one of them.
No, yeah.
She only offed one of them. And you know what I did? I took Blue Dog and I threw him in my closet.
Did you
to even the
it
score?
Out? Did you tell her that as a result?
You know what? She doesn't care. She hasn't even asked about Blue Dog.
Poor R. She sent R down the chute like Shawshank Redemption.
She did.
It was just into that godforsaken hole.
Meanwhile, he's still asking for R, and now the rule is like, nobody mention R. We just got to get past this.
No, that's the thing. You can't.
Because
they remember it.
Producer Phil is sad because he has kids. He understands. Nobody mentioned R. We did look for a replacement, but it turns out, unfortunately, that it was Steve's mom got R for him, and it looks like R was one of a kind. We have not been able to find a mass-produced replacement, although kids know. If I handed him a shiny R, he'd be like, "What is this? This doesn't have my snot all over it."
Smells and things like that. No, it's like in Best in Show, the Buzzy Bee.
Yes.
Where's the Buzzy Bee?
The Buzzy Bee.
I need the Buzzy Bee. This is a fish.
We're surviving, but he is having a tough time going to bed, and it's very sad. It makes me sad. He will be fine.
Wow.
And then last night, I went down to talk to my older girls, who are 11 and 9, and this is just like a glimpse into what it's like to live in a household full of women. I go down
Lucky Steve.
to chat with them and to say goodnight and tuck them in, and we get into a conversation about R, and they ask, is there any chance we still find him? No, probably not. And, at least he's with Blue Dog. And I said, I found Blue Dog. My 9-year-old goes, "Oh no, now I'm going to cry." So she's sad. And then the older sister is like, "Stop crying. You're going to make me cry." And then I'm sort of tearing up. And the younger one is like, "Why am I crying about my brother's stuffed animal?" And we all cried together for a little bit about R. And then this morning, my sweet, sweet daughters remembered that I gave them a little lion stuffy from my childhood that is like, has kind of the same beanbaggy feel.
Yeah,
it's like
that
soft.
You would hand it down.
And it's all battered and demented looking because it's from 1982. And they brought it upstairs, and they were like, can we give this to him? And I was like, you know what? We can try. He's like, we're not going to imply he is R.
Right. No. Just say, oh, here's this other.
But we did say this is Mama's lion, and the girls had the lion, and he named him Yayan. So his name's Yayan.
Okay.
And look, I don't think he loves him. At first, he tossed him. He was like, that ain't no R.
Oh, really?
But then later, and I don't know if he was doing it to please us, he was like, sure, I'll give him a hug. So we'll see. Maybe he'll like the new lion.
The attachments are often, I think, organic. You can't force it.
I know.
So if it happens, it happens.
But it was such a nice thing for them to do. And I had forgotten I had that little 1982 lion.
But it reminds me of the Pixar movie Up, right? And is it Up? And oh no, it's Toy Story.
Toy Story.
It's Toy Story with lots of hugs.
Oh,
Which is the voice of Ned.
And
he got replaced.
Those movies tear me up.
Yeah. The original ones now.
And Inside Out.
The first
Inside Out when is it Inside Out where the imaginary friend disappears, Bing Bong meets his end. Can't handle it. Anyway, we'll survive. We'll survive. Okay.
Good.
We should probably do some news.
Okay.
Should we talk about tariffs? I'm gonna read
Not
from
really, but we will.
The word tariff is boring sounding. Like as soon as you say tariff, people's brains go blah. Although I guess one of the most entertaining people in the world talks about them all the time. That would be Donald Trump.
Yes.
So this is from Reason reporting. Amid this week's escalation of a North American trade war, the stock market has been sending a clear signal. Stop doing this. Stocks rise and fall for a variety of reasons, of course, but this week's downward spiral was largely driven by one man, President Donald Trump. Trump's announcement on Monday of new 25% tariffs on all imports from Canada and Mexico caused the markets to drop instantaneously. The drop continued on Tuesday as Trump vowed in an address to Congress that he'd impose more tariffs. And over the past 2 days, this is from last week, but since then, as the White House has retreated, they've continued to
half measures.
By the end of the day, last Thursday, Trump had postponed tariffs on all goods from Canada and Mexico that comply with the trade deal he negotiated during the first term. So, in essence, inflicted a lot of pain for no reason.
Right.
This is just rhetorical pain.
Yeah.
We're creating.
Right. Again, and trying to say that this is really about stopping the flow of fentanyl into our country from the north. It's a big difference, the amount that comes in from the north versus from Mexico. That's the first thing. The second thing I was going to say is, from the moment in 2016 of Donald Trump's Access Hollywood tape, and everyone thought this is the end of him, it's over, and it turns out it's not. And there have been millions of things that have come up that he has said that people are like, I can't believe he said this. It's over. He's done for. And it's never over, and he keeps on going. And the news cycle is very quick. When you start getting into the market and the impact on the market and the larger economy, that lingers.
It's a dangerous zone.
It is.
Yes.
People are not going to easily forget. And what you're seeing now, and we talk about this all the time, the unintended consequences of, interfering in the market, particularly when you're using tariffs and then you're pulling back on partial tariffs. Even if you're trying to make the situation better by saying, okay, we're actually not going to impose it, and therefore Canadian oil imports are not going to have tariffs slapped on them that are going to hurt us or hurt the economy, whether it be in Michigan, Ohio, and any of these particular places. What you're seeing is now decline in confidence. So even though he's going to pull back and you're going to see this, there's a new deadline for a number of these tariffs. I believe it's April 2. What you're seeing is a decline in confidence because of the back and forth. So even if he wants to fix it now, there's a delay in people thinking, okay, well, everything's going to be better now. They don't know that because they don't know what he's going to say or do next.
Well, and this is where I think there's
when it comes to the economy.
There's a distinction between something like, and we've pointed them out before, when he uses them to negotiate. Which he did against France in 2020
and
on an internet tax.
We've said this before.
Where he says, hey, I'm going to put 100% tariff on champagne. And France is like, never mind, we're not going to do that internet tax. Our bad. Or Colombia, where you get a quick result, where they take back their illegal immigrants. Okay. I think I'm medium tolerant of that. You can get results from that. these are not that.
Yeah.
Unless he's negotiating with the market to wipe out a bunch of people's investments, in which case, efficient. But look, I think that there is a cost to the instability in and of itself, to the unpredictability of his messaging. So it's, even if you go quickly from saying there will be a tariff to there won't be a tariff, you've lost something in that exchange. Reason goes on to say this week's sell-off is more than just a reaction to the tempestuous trade policy coming from the White House. It's also a signal that many investors believe that instability at best and significantly higher taxes, that's if they don't get that package through, at worst, or tariffs as taxes, will continue to drag the economy for the foreseeable future. Now, I know that the Trump line is we're bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. Okay, that's like 2 or 3 years down the road at best. So you will not see the benefit of that politically. Perhaps that is a selfless move. I'm not sure it is. Then there's the fentanyl thing, which doesn't make a ton of sense because it's coming from Mexico much more than it's coming from Canada. I get that he finds Trudeau annoying. So do I. He has put more wind under the wings of Justin Trudeau than anyone could have. Trudeau's got to be kicking himself.
And the new leader, Carney.
Well, right. I'm going to say Trudeau stepped down and said, we'll name someone else to the head of the Liberal Party because he was dragging them down. But Trump single-handedly has reinvigorated the left in Canada, thereby putting Pierre Poilievre, one of the best conservative leaders in the English-speaking world, on even ground instead of 20 points ahead or double digits ahead, which is where he was. So that's not great.
But he likes, because he's getting some concessions apparently from Mexico, that he now says wonderful things about the socialist President Sheinbaum in Mexico.
I know. Well, and in the end, I think, as you say, the economy is tricky territory.
Yeah.
I think he was handed a soft economy. Yeah. I think we haven't truly paid the price for 2020 yet.
5 years this month.
There's been an incredible distortion in the market from the giant flow of government money that came partly from Trump and a lot from Biden.
Right, while telling people to stay home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that really messed with the economy. And because of this huge distortion, we haven't really figured out where we are. And I think we've been mostly... I feel like we're lucky things weren't worse than they were. My meaning being, you had a situation where any fallout could easily have been blamed on Biden, and I think would have instinctively for the next year and a half. And even if people didn't see immediate improvement, they would be quite generous to you. And then Trump went and did maybe the only loud, ostentatious, gigantic thing that can only be pinned on him. And that is what caused the sell-off.
Yeah.
There will be follow-on effects. There will probably be lingering effects that are coming from the Biden era.
Right.
And he's going to take them now.
And he's going to fully own it if he keeps on pushing for these sort of tariffs. Again, he's saying it's going to be short-term pain, and the bottom line is he's trying to save America money and have America make more money, and he's got to hope that happens, and we're through it by 2026, because now everybody's talking about whether or not there's going to be a recession, and Trump saying, I don't want to play that prediction game, which makes people freak out more. And so now he's meeting with all various members of the business sector today, in fact, as we record this, in order to calm them down. But I can't imagine they're going to be placated when he keeps on dangling various tariffs here and there, and how it affects suppliers for parts
what it ends up doing too is it becomes this swampy parlor game where whoever meets with Trump, this is right, cuts against all of his messaging about clearing this town out, which has always been sort of iffy in practice. It becomes this parlor game where you go to Mar-a-Lago and you argue that you need an exemption from the tariffs.
Carve out.
Right? And then you get that because you're closer to Trump. It's just all market distortion, not good. There are things, for instance, with China that are deeply unfair. I think there are trade practices that are unfair that you can fight back on. But people have much more tolerance when you're fighting China than they do fighting Justin Trudeau, I think.
Yeah.
At any rate, that's where we are at the moment.
It's particularly frustrating if you're looking at this from the outside and wondering why Trump is expending a lot of energy on trying to bend his allies and then maybe less forceful when it comes to adversaries like Russia. We don't know that now. I mean, he may issue sanctions against Russia because we'll get to Ukraine later, but sort of the give and take, and Russia's also not playing along. Big shocker there.
Right.
But it is particularly frustrating.
Yeah, well, and I think he runs the risk of doing what Biden did. Biden's vice was giant government spending. And he rationalized it with a bunch of magical thinking from many years of believing that this is like an unqualified good, not thinking about the downsides, not listening to people tell him about the downsides. And what did he do? He torpedoed his whole presidency within a couple of months by causing inflation that led him to lose. Of course, he also didn't have a functioning brain, so that was part of it. Trump has a different vice. It is tariffs. He has always loved them. He props them up with a fair amount of magical thinking and not thinking about the downsides and not listening to people talk to him about the downsides. And within a couple of months, he could do great damage.
I always have this fear that, the way people talk about, leftists talk about communism and socialism, and it only failed because we haven't had a true form it's never been tried, true socialism. And I feel like in the back of Trump's mind, it's like, true tariffs have never been tried. I mean, we've done it in the past. You can go way back to, the country's origins, and we've had it, but not like this. And I want to see what happens if we really see, and, thinking that our pain is not going to be as bad as their pain.
Well, yes, there's another step in this, right, that Biden did, which was he shushed people about their struggles, about inflation. He gaslit people. Now, Trump has mostly said, he's done the bare minimum, which is acknowledge that pain could be part of this equation. Not a great political message, but it's honest. He's not gaslighting people, but if you sort of tell them that it's not that big a deal and it's short-term pain, but it's actually hurting people, that will hurt you politically, period. So that's where we're at.
Lovely.
On that. We'll see what happens. Look, also, how many times have I been wrong about Trump's political calculations? So many times.
It's going to, after we tape this, Kat says, fine, forget it. You know what? You win, and we're now your 51st state. We don't.
I don't think I'm wrong about economics, but I do think I could be wrong about him getting out of this jam just like he gets out of all the other ones.
Most of his jams.
Yeah, all the jams.
Really.
So, shall we talk about the Ivy Leagues?
Yes.
What's going on? So
very, very hard to get into these schools. I can tell you now as we're beginning the process of looking at colleges.
Oh, gosh. I bet.
Not that we're looking here, but go ahead.
Well, and then you pay all that money to just become a Hamas supporter.
Yeah.
So that's no fun.
And say go back to Germany.
So there was some news last week that the federal government's going to cut off a bunch of grants to Columbia University for its bad behavior in not protecting Jewish students and in allowing all sorts of vandalism and crimes and all sorts of stuff. Look, the Ivy League schools have billions of dollars in endowments.
Yep.
They have all the rich people going to these schools. They have all the rich people donating to these schools. Yep. Why are the rest of us paying for these schools?
Yeah.
I think, you want to be careful that it is about discrimination based. They have actually violated the law pretty clearly, a lot of these schools, and therefore should face punishment for that. You want to be careful that it's not content based, right? You're not getting your grants yanked because we don't like the things you teach, right?
Right.
I think he runs into some problems with these DEI executive orders where it's like you can say government funds are not going to go to these programs. I think you're not allowed to say if you have these programs, you don't get government funds, right? It's a distinction that makes it safer constitutionally. At any rate, a bunch of money coming out of Columbia's pocket, and I am not sad about it. And apparently the faculty is very up in arms that the president let it get this far.
Yes, that's right. There's a lot of pressure that's
the president of the university.
The president of the
Trump.
university right now, and there is obviously a lot of pressure being put on them by the administration because they want all that money, as you mentioned, even though they have a ton.
Right.
But again, I think right now it goes to the billions, but at least 51 million at the very moment is being sort of yanked from Columbia, and I'm sure they can use that money for one thing or another. But they
Many
have to
things.
be able to, when you have students that storm a hall in Barnard College, and, the Free Beacon has covered this very extensively. The first thing that happened was Columbia University had pushed back and saying this is Barnard. It's not really Columbia. It's wrong for, you know what I mean?
Right,
If you call it
right.
Columbia, Barnard is its own thing. It's affiliated with, and then it's like 3 out of the 5 who were, arrested are actual Columbia students visiting Barnard. And I think one was from the theological seminary.
Okay.
It's somebody said this,
How
by the way,
nice.
2 or 3 of the protesters, the activists wearing their masks and playing pretend wannabe terrorists, are Asian women, and somebody had
I
commented.
think all people who go to college now are Asian.
Asian women, and somebody had commented saying,
So it's like there's a lot.
Well, think about this. As somebody had commented and said, I couldn't help but notice this, and their parents cannot be happy. And I thought, you know what? It's true.
That is definitely not why they sent them to an Ivy League school.
But you can't, extend deadlines for their occupation, and the Columbia University president having to get permission from the activist to leave her office to use the bathroom, and they're making fun of her for that. I mean,
no,
it's
they're
humiliating.
She's walking through the crowd and saying like, "Oh, can you guys settle down? Can you guys move?"
I need to use the bathroom.
It's like watching
please.
a gentle parent who has lost all control in public and
the
just
gentle
can't
parent.
pick up the kid and take him to the car, and the kid won't listen to him. The kid's abusing them, like verbally, and she just doesn't have authority because she hasn't laid down the law at any point up until now. So you end up with rampaging, you end up with vandalism, you end up with actual crimes happening on your campus, and this is the dumb thing.
And they sent a worker to the hospital.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, the janitor. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. The dumb thing from the beginning of this has been, and we'll move on to whether the administration is drawing the proper lines here, the administration of the United States. The administrations of these colleges could have had easy wins by saying, yes, speech is sacrosanct, protected at our school. This is the way we view that. Here are the clear rules. What you cannot do is threaten people, intimidate people, attack people, occupy buildings, vandalize, be violent. For those things, you will pay a steep price.
And if you are a university that your advice to Jewish students is to hide your Jewishness.
That was just recently, right?
Yeah.
That they sent out a memo telling us.
Not Columbia, but it was, you might as well be a university in Germany in the 1930s.
Well,
it's like ridiculous.
I think my least favorite anecdote from all of these incidents was in UCLA when they actually set up checkpoints to check if people were Jewish. If students were Jewish, before they could go to school.
And you must, disavow Zionism to enter here. You must accept.
Amazing stuff. Checkpoints for Jews on the UCLA campus.
Who they accuse of being Nazis, by the way.
Right. So then the Trump administration is like, well, we're going to go after, and DeSantis had sort of workshopped this in Florida last year. So we're going to go after the visas and the immigration status of foreign students who come here and advocate for terrorism or do crimes, because a lot of these universities were saying, oh, we must circle the wagons around particularly the visa-holding foreign students who have been involved in these crimes, because if they get convicted or they're in trouble, they can get thrown out. It's like, that's by design. When you come here, there's a certain set of rules you have to follow, and you have to keep your nose pretty clean because you're a guest in the country. So the administration...
because it would be vice versa, by the way, if you go to their country as a student.
I think so, yes. So DeSantis tried this, and then the administration has adopted this similar tactic to say if you're a visa holder and you are engaged in, I'm not sure that what their language is. Sometimes they've just said Hamas sympathizers, which is that's just a viewpoint. That's not a crime.
No,
that's not materially supporting terrorists. That is not. So I've been a little iffy on this from the beginning and how it will be executed. And we've got our first test case.
Sure enough.
Which is Mahmoud Khalil of Colombia. He was a visa holder at one point, but at the point that he was arrested by the administration, or I don't know which law enforcement agency took him in, but threatened with deportation for his activities on campus, he was a green card holder.
Supposedly.
Right.
So There seems to be some confusion over this.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
they say that he somehow had both visa and green
Okay.
card, which is not really feasible because if you have a temporary status is your visa, right? You're
Right.
allowed to visit here as a foreign national. If you have a green card, that's residency,
Right.
which makes things a little bit more complicated. And obviously, we're going to be in the court. So there's still a lot of things that are unclear about that.
Yeah, and the legal standard is different, right? So I
Yes.
think if you're going to do this, I think it's perfectly defensible to punish visa
Yeah.
holders who are involved in material support of terrorist
Yeah.
organizations.
You do not have the same rights. number
or
one.
you don't,
Yeah.
or disrupting on campus, doing the crimes. For
Yeah.
those things, those people should be held to account.
Mhm.
In this, for visa holders, it's easier.
Yeah.
For a green card, the bar is higher.
You got to go to immigration court.
You have to show that he might be a national security threat.
Right.
He is, as of now, not accused of crimes. It's possible.
It might be a green card because he's married, so that maybe he got it. He has it that way.
Maybe so. But right now he's not accused of any crimes. So then it becomes, okay.
They're working on it.
Well, this is the problem, right? You've elevated a guy, so
Right.
now it's like, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. Even though it's entirely possible if he's involved in these kinds of occupying buildings that he could have been involved in a crime.
So he led CUAD, which is Columbia University Apartheid Divest, right? And he's a foreign national. He has a green card. It's true, but he is a foreigner, and CUAD is more than just resistance. They are about supporting they literally say they support the Al-Aqsa flood, which is October 7th.
Yeah, that's problematic. Yeah.
Yes, and they say by any means necessary. And so you can make the argument, do those activities warrant, giving aid and comfort to the enemy?
Right.
And I think that should be, and that is the government's position, or it should be the government's position of why we think that this foreign national whose organization supports these things needs to go.
Yeah.
Again, the more complicated question is if he has a green card and residency status, and they moved him as, he was originally detained in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Bad enough, I'd like to say, and brought him down to Jena in Louisiana, or Jena, Jena, if you're making the Napoleon reference, the Jena. But he's down there now, and they have to be very careful, the administration, because if they don't have a very solid argument for why they're doing this and moving him, they could inadvertently turn Mahmoud Khalil into some sort of a metaphorical martyr.
Oh, no.
And it'll be like Free Mandela suddenly.
Truly. I mean, it's already happened.
Free Khalil.
The Senate
Free the
Democrat,
guy who wants Israel to not exist.
Yeah, the Senate Democrat Judiciary has already tweeted on his behalf, free him.
Oh, they've done more tweeting of freeing Khalil than Israeli hostages.
American hostages in Gaza.
Great priorities.
So, yeah, I think they're on thin ice here, because you could have had an open and shut case with a handful of visa holders who really were clearly, obviously on tape involved in crime. Yeah. And you do the thing that is well within your rights to do, and you make it clear to people that these will be the consequences if you're engaged in this in the future. But instead they pick up one guy who has a green card.
Right.
So now you can everybody can focus their activism on this one man, and it is a more complicated case in which they are far more likely to be trampling on his rights.
And meanwhile, as our Jessica Kostesco at the Free Beacon reports, professors are canceling classes this week or making them Zoom optional in support of Khalil because it's very emotional.
There's nothing that college professors love more than not teaching.
Yeah. And
it's their favorite thing.
That's their favorite thing.
Isn't this a lesson in and of itself?
In and of itself, class dismissed. And and there's one professor who in fact said, no classes because of this horrible thing that has happened to one of our students, and you all get A's on the midterm. So, just
hope you enjoy paying $80,000 a year for that. Our eminently reasonable friend A.G. Hamilton, I will just run through a little bit from him. If Mahmoud Khalil was a visa holder, he would be an obvious candidate for visa revocation and deportation. There would not be any question. He has been a key actor in campus violence, harassment, and property destruction The groups he represents are open about their advocacy for terrorism and violence. They are also openly anti-American. He has himself openly expressed support for armed resistance. All of that should clearly be disqualifying for someone here on a visa. It's silly to watch people try to frame him as a peaceful anti-war protester, which is what you'll see a lot of. So there is a distinction here. Doesn't mean that the Trump administration's in the right necessarily, but he is not this chill guy standing with a poster.
Right.
Like, that's not what he's doing. And why Democrats portraying him as a hero will regret it. But because he seemingly recently obtained a green card, he is legally entitled to a greater level of legal protections than when he was a visa holder. The government will need to show that he is a national security risk or has committed some relevant crime in order to revoke his green card as a part of a removal process. I have no idea if they can show that, and neither do any of the other people commenting right now. We will find out more. He's entitled to due process despite his odious views and behavior, but a court should decide if the evidence supports removal. And then he concludes that, as I did, that the Trump administration could have just brought a slam dunk example instead of this one. Because then you sour people on the whole project. And though the media and elite universities are less powerful in shaping opinion than they used to be, there could be a real First Amendment issue here. Yeah. If you don't do these things carefully, he might make the same mistake that the universities made, which is easy win, go after people for crimes, not speech. And if you're on the line, be careful about it.
And meanwhile, the Columbia University administration itself is fighting, on the one hand, you would think based on their own sensibilities that, I can't believe, they can't do that to one of our students. At the same time, because professors were saying that they're canceling classes because of this, the administration's like, no, classes are not canceled because they need the money from the federal government. So they're all in this situation.
Oh, goodness gracious. Should we do a little Ukraine? We'll keep you posted on that because I do think,
ongoing.
And by the way, there's also a fight because the left is always like, ha ha ha, none of you free speech people are standing up, when in fact, like, every free speech person I follow on the right or center right is like consistently saying, this doesn't look good. Right. Let's reevaluate this. So that's not true. At any rate, shall we get to a Ukraine update? There was some coverage in the New York Times, which I found sort of funny because I read it hoping to find out about the thing it's purportedly about. Yes, the headline is, Rubio seeks ceasefire in Ukraine after reaching his own with Musk. And I thought, I want to hear about what he's doing in Saudi Arabia, talking about a possible ceasefire. This story is not about that. This story is only about the soap opera with Elon Musk, which I will now talk about.
Yes. See how it works?
Yeah. So those two apparently had a blow up, and we're all reading personality tea leaves in every Trump administration, right? Because there's a lot of large personalities. There's a lot of friction. And a lot of it is open. That's one of the things not that I think the Oval Office blow up was strategically great, but there is a part of me that just appreciates that we see all of it for the most part.
That sort of transparency.
Yeah, they don't. It's not like you're in the dark in so much as Trump might change his mind at any moment, but you're not in the dark as to what's actually happening.
Right. What you see is what you get.
So Elon and Rubio had a blow up because I think Rubio was upset at Musk doing things too quickly and too sloppily. Are you noticing a pattern? And that it was affecting some of his stuff, and he wants to be, a guy who heads an agency responsibly, and he wants to have the trust of the people who work under him. Apparently, Trump stuck up for Rubio in this meeting, which is heartening to those who kind of want Rubio to be able to lead and not get subsumed by the Trump-Musk bromance.
I mean, they're all trying to battle to try to sway the president, obviously, to get him on their side.
But it sounds like Rubio might have more sway than some would have expected for little Marco.
Yeah.
And I think that bodes well. He said, as Mr. Musk criticized Mr. Rubio in the Thursday meeting for failing to make deeper cuts at the State Department, Mr. Rubio, a former senator from Florida, defended himself with anger and sarcasm. That earned Mr. Rubio supportive words from Mr. Trump, who said he had done a great job. Trump does like when you stick up for yourself.
He can't have anybody leave yet. Not this you can't have anybody. It's a bad look, you know.
Saturday's trilateral dinner seemed a further sign that the president expected Mr. Musk to peacefully coexist with Mr. Rubio and vice versa. And then on like a couple days later, they were tweeting each other.
Yeah.
Affectionately or neutrally. Yes. And I think Rubio announced that 83% of USAID is going to be kaput.
Okay.
But he has done a review of it. It's not just you're gone.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing is, the people who are directly involved and who have direct oversight can make better decisions on what needs to go. I would say in the USAID situation, services rendered probably have to be paid. I may be wrong, disagree with me. But
that was that was the thing that was in the courts.
That's in the courts.
Right.
If you agree to a deal is a deal, even if it's a terrible idea, it's a terrible program. But the fact is,
we got the mice high and gay, and now you have to pay us for it
because you asked for it.
The hamsters are trans, and we need our money. You have been invoiced.
Mission accomplished. Okay, so again, pay it and then never do it again. But the fact is a deal, and that's how business works. That's my first thought. The second thing is it's obviously not new. They want to make this into a thing of this internecine fight within the cabinet, people going against each other and how terrible it is, and it doesn't look good for Trump that he has no control. When this happens all the time, and the first thought that came to my mind was I remember reading about in George H.W. Bush's administration in the Oval Office, and an argument had broken out between Jack Kemp and James Baker, and it got physical. And then, and Kemp, of course, was a great football player.
Yeah, watch out for that
for the Buffalo Bills. And Baker's just
I put my money on Kemp.
Yeah, versus Baker played tennis, I think, and so a mean old guy. And it took Brent Scowcroft, who was a national security advisor, and a very small fella, though he was in the military. Obviously, he was a general. He had to break them up in front of Bush. I mean, that's kind of awkward. And that story came out, but it was a different time when you don't have things like
now
social
we just
media.
do that on camera.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Meanwhile, this is from earlier this weekend. On Saturday, Russian strikes on Ukraine killed at least 20 people, officials said Saturday, as heavy aerial attacks continued after the U.S. stopped sharing satellite images with Ukraine. Trump had decided to stop sharing intel with Ukraine, which seems like a
very effective,
like a costless interaction for us to share this information with them. The decision to withhold intelligence and military aid came on the heels of a tempestuous White House visit last week by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Without U.S. satellite imagery, Ukraine's ability to strike inside Russia and defend itself from bombardment is significantly diminished. However, from which day is this? Excuse me. Yeah, from today, Russian officials said Ukraine attacked Moscow before dawn on Tuesday with its largest long-range drone bombardment of the war, as both sides stepped up attacks ahead of talks intended to find a way to end 3 years of fighting. Russian Ministry of Defense, let's not take them at face value, claimed to have shot down at least 91 drones in the region around Moscow and more than 240 drones directed at other targets across the country. Drone warfare, by the way, pretty scary.
Yeah,
pretty scary.
And it's the future, and we're way behind, by the way, the United
I'm sure we're
States.
doing great.
No, I mean, right now we're still fighting that sort of Independence Day style, everybody getting your F-18 against the alien ship. Yeah, everybody's on their own individual jets. No, drones. The answer was drones.
I feel confident that Elon Musk will negotiate with the aliens and get us out of it.
Good.
Right?
Good. I hope so. The ones from... Okay. Before we get into that, I will say the withholding of intelligence sounds and is terrible, but it's not like Ukraine did not have access to the intelligence from our allies. So I'd like to think that. But of course, it's really this just saying that that's what we did in order to get them to the peace table.
Yeah.
And then Trump being incensed when Russia then goes on a full offensive.
Yeah, no, so we should add.
If you're going to try to tie somebody's hands behind their backs, the other person is not going to not go for it.
Yeah, surprise.
When it's Russia.
Oh, look, the consequences of my own actions. He did threaten to put tariffs on and sanctions on Russia, but Russia's already pretty sanctioned.
Yeah.
He actually, this is one thing I do think he didn't get enough credit for in his first term, is that he was
tough.
He was pretty tough
For all that, yeah,
with
people
sanctions
want you
on Russia.
People want you to think that he's what they would say, like Putin's puppet.
Yeah.
But he did a lot.
Remember when he closed he closed some embassy in San Francisco?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
But he did all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Now, this time around, he's like, I'm going to put, I'll sanction Russia and also probably put some tariffs on Ukraine. Or it was a sort of a mixed up message, as it often is. And the fact is, if that's the consequence, if the truth post is the consequence,
right,
that ain't enough.
No. And the other thing is, Russia is not Iran. Like during the first term of Trump, they brought Iran to its knees.
Mm-hmm.
They were on the verge of bankruptcy, right? I mean, it was very difficult for them to do anything. And then Biden came in and restored it, and see what happens.
So nice.
So
here's
nice
your money on pallets.
It's much harder to do that to Russia.
Yeah.
Because they can still do back deals with China and Iran. I mean, it's a country that spans 11 time zones. It's a big country.
It's huge.
So, this
is where you get the incisive commentary. Russia, huge.
Huge.
Large country, very big. Spans a lot of time zones.
And that's all you need to know. That's your takeaway. That's your take for the listeners, by the way.
Throwback to Kabbalah. Yeah. A big country invaded a small country. I like to think we brought a little more to the table.
Yes. But, Slightly. Oh, no, but I will say this. I mean, Trump's thinking that it takes two to tango, as he says.
Yeah.
And it's because at the moment, one thing that Ukraine tried to do in order to stave off a full invasion from the east is they have a sliver of Kursk, right, in Russia, which that's Russian territory. That was never disputed as part of Ukraine. You can see it's like it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Right.
And they're trying to use that as a bargaining chip to get back. But how much do they want to get back? Because the amount that Russians occupy in the Donbass and Crimea is a huge swath.
Large. Again, incisive, large part of Ukraine. So I need to do a little Randi Weingarten talk.
Okay.
She's back in the news because there's talk of cutting the Department of Education. And I just want to play a couple of clips. One, I think it's great for Republicans if she just continues talking. She is, well, you'll hear. Let's play it.
This is why so many people are so mad about it, because they're just taking opportunity away from kids that don't have it. So kids of billionaires, they have it. They go to private schools. Everyone else, 90%, go to public schools. Don't take away their opportunity.
So let's stay on the facts.
Sorry,
no,
I'm really angry about this.
No, because this
I'm
is what
really
people
angry.
need to hear.
I taught kids in Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn, New York.
She should have stayed there.
Yeah, she taught kids for 3 years, by the way, before becoming a union head who's just gotten
very power hungry.
Who decided to hold the educations of 90% of American children hostage for 2 years, so she could get her big COVID payout and less work for her.
In alternative universe, she's the Secretary of Education. So just remember, when things get bad, I don't know that, but I mean,
you're probably right.
When things get bad, and they can, think about what it would have been like.
I know.
Although it's getting close, is that you're going to say?
By the way, I love this MSNBC reporter.
Don't apologize, please. I'm with you. I support you all the way.
Tell me all the things.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
Thank you for playing the clip of Randi Weingarten, because two words come to my mind when I hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Dulcet tones.
Yes. So she's complaining about cutting the Department of Education. Of course, we had education before there was a Department of Education, and arguably things have only gotten worse since then.
Right. It's not like it was founded by George Washington.
No.
It was like 1979.
It's basically a many billions of dollars pass through at the federal government level for people like Randi and other administrative types to scrape money from taxpayers and do very little for students. Now, the idea from the Trump administration is we can block grant most of this and send it to the states. They're closer to these students. They can figure out what they'd like to do. But she was talking to Molly Jong-Fast on her podcast, and Randi Weingarten says the quiet part out loud, which we appreciate. Transparency once again. Here, why is she so angry about that money not coming through? Let's hear why.
Equally pernicious, they're saying, oh, don't worry, let's block grant it. So we'll give it to a state education department So, and then let the state education department decide what to do. So we know, for example, what Texas would do.
Right.
They'll use it
We
for
do.
vouchers. So they
Yeah.
won't give it to the kids who have it now. They'll just give it for vouchers.
Catholic schools,
And,
religious
well,
schools.
Okay, listen.
Perish the thought.
They'll give it to students who need to escape the schools you have ruined.
Yeah.
Like
We
just
want
to
you
translate
we
that.
want you to stay
Yeah.
in the very bad schools and not learn and not be able to read at 8th grade levels and everything else. But not that we would send our own kids there.
Oh, no. I mean, every elite
She
liberal
says
sends
this-
their kids to
Right.
private
She
schools.
says this all the time. Oh, the billionaires don't. Well, would you send your kids to these particular schools in
and when
wherever,
she says
in
the
Chicago
billionaires,
or at L.A.?
when she says the billionaires' kids already have the freedom to go wherever they want to go. A situation where you have school choice gives other people
Right.
the freedom to do that
And not
to
just-
escape. Again, no figure has ever done more damage to the public school system in this country than this woman over the past 5 years.
Yeah. Do you remember during COVID and schools being shut down in California, but Gavin Newsom's kids were
yeah, of
going to
course.
school because
Yeah.
they went to a fancy
He went
school.
to French Laundry. They went to school. So they just had
A
different
normal
rules
life.
than we did.
A normal life for them, and don't worry about everybody else, but just listen to us and don't leave your house.
I mean, the actual nerve of this woman,
Yeah.
who, by the way, wasn't at all mad about the national report card showing that nobody could read or do math.
it's got to be somebody
In
else's
fact,
fault.
to the extent that she spoke about it at all, it was just to say, wait for it, we need more money.
Yeah. No, that's the thing.
We need more money to do better.
Don't support the Catholic schools or the private schools,
Which do
or the
perform
charter,
well.
or the charter schools. Keep them in here. If you want them to improve, you need to give us more money, because look at some of the worst schools in the country, and they receive no money. Oh, wait a minute. No, they
No,
receive the
the
most
most
money.
money,
They receive
yes.
the most money. Where does it go?
Every struggling district is like
Yeah.
$22,000 per
student.
kid.
Yeah.
And what you could do with that money to go to even a middling private school. It infuriates me to hear her talk about it when she was instrumental
Right.
in making sure that every major metro area abandoned its public school students for 18 months.
Yeah.
And now she's just wants to continue to whistle past the graveyard, but also give me my money. She's wild. One more thing.
Please.
I was in an argument with one of my Democratic counterparts on Fox this Sunday, Leslie Marshall, who we generally have a nice back and forth. But man, they are really on that 2020 messaging sometimes again. She told me about how the science is just not political. And Democrats understand this, and Republicans don't. And they demonized vaccines, and they made things political during COVID. And that's why we're having trouble right now in Texas. And it came back to me, and I was like, Howie Kurtz's show. I was like, Howie, I got to say, to hear from my Democrat counterpart after COVID that science is not political is frankly laughable. And here are the 87 reasons why.
Wonderful.
But just when you talk about the counterfactual, in a heartbeat, people who talk like that would do 2020 again to us.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat.
My Knights of Columbus, I'm going to give him a shout out here. My Knights of Columbus brother, Al Grossi, I saw him on Sunday, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And he said, saw your friend Mary Katharine on TV on that Howie Kurtz show. She was on with this Leslie someone. Oh, she dismantled her. That's what he said. I said,
Well,
oh,
I did follow up with her, and I asked if there was one mistake or one of the 87 lies I mentioned that she considered a problem. And she declined to consider it.
Yeah.
She couldn't concede one point.
Yeah.
They would do it again in a heartbeat.
They think it's a good thing, but we know that it's not.
All right. well,
Okay.
uplifting message to end today.
Yeah.
2020 will happen again. Gird your loins.
The uplifting message is they finally are paving over Black Lives Matter Plaza on 16th Street in front of the Hay Adams Hotel. So it's just
The idea that ever happened, it was a weird, it was a wild
weird
time,
yeah.
guys.
And my concern was that they had to rechange all their stationery now, the letterhead. But
Francis Collins is still playing his dang guitar out
saw
there.
that as well. Okay.
Stop,
I have
dude.
a quick call out to listener fan Scott Cumber, who also has his own podcast. He has a couple podcasts. You did one with him on running.
Yes, 10 junk miles.
That's it. And then
I don't know how enlightening it was because I'm not that great a runner. But
well, I heard that's a lot of listeners. I noticed he didn't have me on that one. I don't run. I used to.
You run more than I do.
I haven't run in a long time now. It's been like, oh my gosh. Okay. But he had me on his other podcast because he heard my discussion about vinyl records, our discussion. His podcast is called I've Got That on Vinyl, and I'm on their new episode.
Nice.
And he said, I don't know how much time you have, to talk about it. In case we don't, we could talk about these other things, maybe 30, 45 minutes. I think I kept him there for an hour talking about Achtung Baby.
No way.
Talking about Studio 54 and other things. Just a lot of questions about vinyl. A lot of fun. So check that out. And again, thanks to our guest producer, Phil, for putting this together. Very patient with us. And that wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis, and check out the pants, the jeans.
Yeah. I am at MK Hammer on X, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show's YouTube and Instagram at Getting Hammered Podcast. And one more actually uplifting thing.
Oh.
Jay Bhattacharya
Doctor.
was in front of the Senate last week, and his confirmation hearing basically confirmed that we were right about everything, and Jay Bhattacharya is the correct person to elevate to the head of NIH, while Francis Collins goes and plays his guitar at a boomer federal worker protest with Randi Weingarten. Good riddance. So congratulations to Jay for his epic performance from 2020 until now. So thanks for being here. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media podcast.